I woke up before the sirens because the light tore through the window. It was not lightning. It was a thin, warm, glass-colored vibration that left the air heavy like rain without water. In Serath, the light of eternal day dwells in the east, and the endless night breathes in the west. I live on the Twilight line, where the sun never rises or falls. There, life is made of tones. That morning, the bones broke. I went down the stairs of the shelter with my coat half closed. The street of Vespera looked normal. Low fog, steam in the ducts, and markets opening. The cranes slept like large animals. Then the ground shook without sound. The railing bar vibrated on my finger. The radio woke up to white noise, and the city, for a long second, lost its weight. People staggered. The dogs were mute. I, Davi Corin, recognized the smell of emergency even without fire. The first square disappeared without saying goodbye. A perfect circle, with benches and a fountain. It didn't turn into wreckage. It became an absence. I ran to the edge and saw what was left. A smooth, over-polished floor, reflecting the sky like a lake of stone. The air there trembled at the edge of the gaze, like heat on cold asphalt. The phase sieve had passed. The glass hierarchy would call this a correction. I tried to call the tower. Static. I tried the civilian post. Voice cut off. I pulled from my memory the old protocol from the years of rescue, closing valves, breaking routine, and taking children out of the shadow of the towers. I repeated it out loud so as not to lose order. Someone listened and repeated it later. That always helps. I turned right, along Rua das Brasas, until Catenari 13. The leaning tower cut through the sky like a rib of a buried ship. The metal bore storm scars. An open panel showed wires as nerves. There was a man lying under the dock, breathing shortly. I pulled slowly. He held a slow, thick cylinder with 3 parallel grooves and a punch-beaten phrase, "Do not repeat." "Where did you get that?" "In the basement of 9, he whispered. "Ceramic cradle." They said, "Scrap." I found memory. I tried to call. I almost knocked the tower down. I touched the core. Warm on the inside, cold on the outside. Machine that asks for respect. "Your name?" "Matthew." I covered the man with my jacket. I fixed the core in a box and entered the tower house with it. Runners smelling of oil. On the control panel, the phase dial flashed late, like a tired heart. The 13th was alive, but out of step. Overhead, an orbital prism crossed the sky in silence, like a knife pulled out of its sheath. He didn't blow the whistle. It only marked our position. I had already read about the Penumbra engine. On old banknotes, it appears as a maintenance tool, a controlled shadow to hold charge when the day pushes and the night pulls. No one told him that he could stop the phase sieve. Maybe no one knew. Maybe someone forgot. I opened the nucleus, spirals, toothing, and a channel for thermal fluid. I tried to attach it to the 13 bracket. It fit like a clock piece. The screen asked for a sequence of times. I knew rhythms. My life was to save people by guiding fire and wind. I thought of the missing square. I thought about the phrase, "Do not repeat." I programmed 3 cycles of heating and cooling without a compass. 2 short, 1 long, and a crooked pause. I invert. Error of purpose. The panel sang a low timbre, like a large glass vibrating. The floor has lost some of the wrong lightness. Outside, the air stopped glowing like liquid glass. Small, but real relief. Motor spoke to me. I understood the half. Heliarquia does not expect a second test. A warning went down. Probability adjustment underway. Remain serene. It's the way of saying, we'll keep sifting until we fit. I saw 2 shadows in the low orbit. Prisms. A third stopped, looking. They learn fast. I needed people. Yara Nox, if she still breathed Vespera, knew how to talk to the carcass of 13. Rook, if he hadn't broken his neck flying on the gradient, would have held antennas in the crooked wind. Brother Cell, with damp books, had a hand for protocols. Miro, a boy from Subglome, knew holes that the militia pretends not to see. He said these names in a low voice, as if calling a tide. I left the tower. A child looked at the smooth circle where there had once been a cake stand. He held a cart by the rope. The rope ended in nothingness. I sat on the curb. I couldn't ask for forgiveness. He told only the truth. The city is not over. We will hold the light in the middle. You'll walk off the step sometimes. It will look wrong. It will save people. She nodded seriously that I don't wish anyone small. He took my hand. We stood there, watching the prism shine. Then she left. I went back to 13. I opened the civilian channel and spoke as in the times of rescue, in a voice that does not allow an echo. Attention, Eve. This is Davi Corin. If you're listening, break the routine. Change the path. Turn off regular pings. Do not repeat shifts. If you have children, go for the shade of a tower with a thick floor. If you have an elderly person, stay together. If you are afraid, breathe out of rhythm. Let's set up a protection. We need hands. 3 answers arrived, then 10, then many. People are better than machines at this job. Matthew woke up and crawled up to me. He held my sleeve. It's yours now, he said, looking at the core. I just found it. No, it's from the city. The prism has changed 1 degree. He learned our little song. I smiled humorlessly. Okay, so let's compose another one. I had already broken promises. The biggest one was never leading anyone again. The sieve took away that luxury from me. Catenary 13 creaked, ready. The penumbra engine pulsed, asking for courage. And the Twilight line, which sustains our days, needed a new blade. I touched the cold metal and accepted the price that would come with the light between day and night. I know the price. Still, I turn on the tower, call my people, and stand in the middle of the catenary 13 creaked like an old rib when we tried to pull power to the penumbra engine. The metal cried under each gust of wind. I was at the foot of the tower, with Mateus still fragile, and the team arriving slowly. Yara Knox, hair tied up, face sweaty with grease. Rook Vale, with his dusk wing folded. Brother Sel, hugging 2 thick books. And Miro, panting, with the smell of tunnel on his shoulders. It was the crew I didn't plan to have, but that Sereth had to offer. 1 engine is not enough, Yara said, tapping on the panel. We need phased antennas at 3 points around the city. If you don't spread the rhythm, the prism copies and breaks. Maximum height, and in the ugliest wind. She smiled crookedly. It's Rook's job. The pilot adjusted his wing belt and laughed joylessly. I dance with winds that have already killed friends. The problem is not the air. It's who will see me up there. And he was right. In the sky, the prisms of the heliarchy floated lower. Small, but with a glass look. One of them flashed an arc of light as if crossing out the victim's name ahead of time. We started the preparation. Yara pulled cables and boxes. Sel read crooked numbers from the manual, and Miro crawled through the ducts to find connection points. I kept the engine attached to 13, feeding it with uneven beats. The problem is that each cycle sucked a piece of me. First, it was a short white man. He didn't remember if he had eaten in the morning. Then, a major flaw. I forgot the face of a man from the old crew for seconds that seemed like a crime. I shook my head and hid it. I couldn't stop. The radio sizzled, deep, mercenary voice. Tower 13 is under embargo by the concessionaire. Order of the heliarchy. Say no, I said dryly. Rook climbed to the top of the 13 with his wing outstretched, just as a warning. We have more work than you do, I shouted. They came. 3 henchmen, long capes, stun guns. Sel closed the book and stood. He didn't look like a warrior, but he didn't back down. Yara held up a wrench. Miro hid in the duct. I continued at motor, without the luxury of starting. The field began to breathe, blowing cold air outwards and warm air inwards. The floor shook. Rook jumped with his wing. The chains pulled him like a ferocious animal. He cut diagonally, sewing antenna cables along the wall. The wind beat in irregular gusts. That's what we needed. Irregularity. He left boxes hanging in the right spots, each flashing at its own frequency. From below, I saw lines of light connecting the tower to the city like veins. The dealership tried to go up, but the motor reacted. Their every step made the ground creak in broken rhythm. They stumbled, lost rhythm, and fell. It was not direct violence. It was music that did not accept an audience. They came back cursing, promising to return. I didn't answer. Serath had enough of an enemy. In the sky, a prism tilted its body. A sounding beam descended, clear and cold, aiming at the heart of the city. The engine shook, trying to hold on. My head throbbed. One memory disappeared entirely. The smell of the beach of childhood. I tried to pull it back, but there was nothing. I paid the price. The field darkened, bending the light from the prism. The beam ricocheted, streaking the air in an impossible curve. The prism retreated like a suspicious beast. "It worked," Yara said. "For one night, Vespera breathes. One night is not enough." I sat at the base of the tower, heart racing. The city was still there. The antennas pulsated. The motor sang ugly, but it sang. The body hurt, and the mind already knew. Each use would collect memories until there was almost nothing left. I looked at the team. Yara was arranging cables. Sel murmured numbers as prayers. Rook landed with his feet steady. Miro came out of the duct smiling, dirty with grease. Everyone believed it was possible. That was more than I expected. I picked up the civilian radio, hoarse voice. I didn't want a speech. I wanted truth. "People of Vesper, this is Davi Corin. Today we hold one night against the glass. It wasn't luck. It was effort and cost. The enemy learns quickly, and tomorrow he will come stronger. If you want to see the sequel, you need to walk with us. Be sure to follow along. Follow our voice. Stay with us. And if you're listening through the channel, subscribe to the prompt and turn on the signal. That way they don't miss the next call." I let go of the radio. The echo went to rooftops and alleys. Maybe someone believed it. Maybe no one. But Serath had only one way, to break the rhythm until the enemy was tired. Night fell with the city still standing. The prism, up there, moved a little away. We didn't win. We just don't die. For now, that was enough. The city breathed crookedly, but it breathed. Vantes was still standing when the inclined dawn again dyed the sky copper. I didn't sleep. I stood by the engine, listening to the irregular sound that kept the prisms away. When I closed my eyes for a moment, I saw holes in my memory. A forgotten face, a nameless place. It was the price. I accepted it, because every failure was a life saved. The population began to change habits. Doors opened at different times, markets worked out of time, and church bells struck wrong times. It was the city learning to survive in chaos. I walked the streets and saw tired looks, but not surrendered. Yara said that Serath was turning into a broken song, and I knew that was the right melody. In the middle of the covered market, we set up improvised antennas. Rook stretched cables across the rafters, and Miro ran from tent to tent to adjust transmitters. Sel read a sequence from the book soaked, marking times as if it were prayer. But the enemy did not sleep. The sky began to glow in fine lines, beams probing our patterns. Heliarquia learned with each beat. The first test came when the sieves mapped our water shifts. An entire district repeated the cycle, and the beam descended like a sheet of glass. Only a smooth square remained in place of 100 houses. Screams filled the air. I ran to the brim and felt the weight of guilt. There was no way to save everyone. In the tower, Yara shouted through the speakers, "We need to break even the breathing routine. If they see a compass, Serath turns to dust." I gave the harshest order of my life. Evacuate 2 neighborhoods and force an irregular blackout. People cried, merchants protested, but obeyed. I knew that by sacrificing 2 places, 5 others would be saved. This is the calculation of war, to lose the minimum so as not to lose everything. The market has become a battlefield. The prisms descended low, trying to copy our wrists. The air vibrated with heat and cold mixed. Cables snapped, tents flew. Rook dove with his wing into the wind corridor, cutting through the beams. Sel slammed the books against the floor, reciting sequences that sounded like chants. Miro climbed the rafters to replace a falling transmitter. I attached the motor to the net and felt another piece of me disappear. I forgot my mother's birthday, as if it had never existed. But the field firmed up, pushing the prisms back. The ground shook like an unbalanced drum, and then one of the prisms couldn't take it. It cracked in half and broke into glass dust, spreading light across the market. The people cried out, not out of fear, but out of hope. For the first time, we saw that they could bleed. Still, when the silence returned, I didn't smile. I looked at the unlit houses, at the faces we would never see again, and I felt the weight grow. I was the man who held the blade, but also the one who chose who would fall. The next night, I sat at the top of 13 and said to the radio, "We are not made to repeat. If we continue out of step, we will live." But no, every wrong hit costs something, and I'm going to pay. The wind carried my words into the alleys. I saw children imitating crooked steps, laughing in the midst of tragedy. Serath was learning. I just needed to hold on for one more day, one more prism, one more memory. The edge of Serath's dayside looked like a field of burning embers. The heat burned the skin before it even reached the ground. The sky there had no mist, only a hard light, without shadows. They called that post the Sun Widow, a reflecting station that once held huge panels to balance the radiation. Today, it was a broken carcass, but it kept something we needed, the synchronization knot that could make the catenaries sing together without falling into the risk of repetition. I didn't want to bring the team to this hell, but there was no choice. Without the knot, our penumbra engine would remain vulnerable. The prisms were already testing new ways of probing, and each night seemed shorter. The journey there was long and rough. Rook piloted the wing through the gradient of winds, stitching together turbulent zones. Yara sweated inside her thermal suit, cursing at molten screws. Miro vomited twice, but did not complain. Brother Cell prayed quietly, perhaps more to keep calm than out of faith. I was silent because I knew that most of the cost would fall on me. When we landed, the glass floor smoked. Towers of twisted metal pointed skyward like burnt fingers. The air trembled. I saw old cables melted into dark rivers. In the center, a cracked dome guarded the heart of the station. The knot was there, but we were not alone. In the shadow of the columns, soldiers of the heliarchy waited. Reflective covers, silver rifles, one of them advanced. "Serath doesn't need heroes," he said. "It needs order. Heliarchia offers amnesty to its engineer." I looked at Yara. She widened her eyes but didn't hesitate. "I don't negotiate with those who turn cities into smooth dust." The response was a shot. The beam bounced off the molten hull. "Run." Rook threw the wing as a shield. Miro pulled out an improvised grenade. Brother Cell held up one of the books, singing a sequence of beats. The ground vibrated, as if the Sun Widow herself had woken up. We have reached the summit. Inside, the node glowed deep blue, attached to a power grid. It was small, but it beat like a living heart. Yara started working on the cables, but the system reacted. The heat has risen. Dead alarms have gone back to screaming. I knew there was only one way, to turn on the penumbra engine inside that oven. I placed the core in the holder, took a deep breath, and activated it. The first wave pulled from me an entire memory. The face of my former crew member, Lena, is gone. I knew I had loved her as family, but I couldn't remember her voice. The emptiness cut me more than the heat. Gradually, the field distorted the energy of the dome. The bars opened. The sync node fell into Yara's hands. But the price did not stop. More memories flowed. Street names, friends' faces, even the taste of my mother's bread. I clung to what was left. The city, alive. The mission is standing. The soldiers retreated when the motor sang. The ground cracked into crooked lines, spitting steam. Rook pulled everyone to the wing, yelling for us to leave. Cell held my shoulders, muttering, "Come in." Not in the middle. The words anchored me. I shut down the engine before it stole everything from me. We left the Sun Widow with the knot in our hands. Behind us, the station collapsed, spewing blue smoke into the clear sky. The heat remained, but we took with us the piece that could turn the game around. On the return flight, I sat on the bottom of the wing, head heavy. Yara held the knot reverently. Rook was smiling for the first time in weeks. Miro spoke quickly about how the people were going to celebrate. Sel prayed silently. I kept quiet. I knew I had left pieces of me on the glass floor, memories that would never return. But he also knew. Sereth had, at last, a chance. The next night would not be like the others. The city would have a new blade. And I was ready to pay more, if necessary. Dawn landed on Vespera's hand on her feverish forehead. The 3 catenaries were standing, the 13th in the center, the 7th in the mill district, and the 21st at the pier of the mist. Yara connected the synchronization node between them, threads like vases. Rook plotted wind routes on the wing display, picking out currents that no sober pilot would accept. Miro spread antennas on the subglobe, marking walls with chalk so no one could repeat the route. Brother Sel walked with the book open, noting the pauses the city had already learned. The main prism appeared first, faceted, with an escort of miners. The heliarchy decided to close the anomaly called Vespera. The ad went down cold. Final adjustment. Optimization required. Remain serene. I marked the time between syllables. Everything in them had a compass. Let's open the blade, Yara said on the radio. 3 beats of shadow, 1 of silence. No symmetry. Understood, I replied. Rook, when the light falls, flies the other way around. I've always wanted to hear that. The city darkened little, not as a blackout, but as a breath that holds the air. The motor moved under my fingers. The 13th was serious, the 7th sharp, and the 21st semitoned. The knot sewed the 3 of them, and an invisible arch began to grow over Vespera, bending the light of the poles. The prism tilted the body, measuring. He fired a shallow sieve. The bow drank the blade without cracking. The concessionaire's militia chose this time to betray us. A group took the 21 service elevator, trying to tear out cables. They promised bonuses and forgiveness from the heliarchy. Miro, in the tunnel, heard boots, noticed repetition in the chalk, changed corridors, and guided civilians along new routes. Sel closed the base hatch with 3 wrong hits. The henchman stumbled inside the shortcut itself. I hold it, Sel said. Make the city happen. The main prism has descended. The escorts opened in a fan. Light beams struck rooftops, aiming at patterns. The blade took shape. It was neither light nor shadow. It was the between, tensioning the edges. Rook dove where the wind rose, turned the wing against the gradient, and streaked the sky with countercurrents. Yara spoke without looking. Davi, there is no phase. I do. The first bite of the engine ripped me off one summer. I remembered the beach, and then it lost its smell. Still, I opened more. The 7 sang louder. The 21 rose in a fractured tone. I felt the blade touch the prism's hull. He shook a thread. The escort tightened the siege. A larger shadow appeared behind, a command prism with rotating rings. It brought the deep adjustment, the total sieve. The announcement was a whisper. Convergence. The air became thin. The floor lost weight. People fell sitting. At that moment, Sel, from level 21, shouted on the radio, Penumbra is between. It's not a means. You're tuning to the middle. I understand. The synchronization node, so useful for stabilizing, began to coordinate too much. The blade threatened to become clear music, and clear music dies at the hands of those who sift it. I adjusted the corner, broke the time with small mistakes, delayed the 13 in breaths, advanced the 21 in cold shocks, and took the 7 from the rest with a hiccup. The bow staggered, ugly and royal, and then grew. The command prism opened the deep fit. The city cleared up for a second. The blade responded with a sideways gesture, a half-moon that cut the sieve by the edge. I heard crackling noises at the top. A smaller prism cracked and turned to dust. Another twisted the column of light and went out. The main one remained and forced another stride. More? Yara asked. Just one more tooth. One more tooth and I'll fall out, I replied. So we fell with you. I closed my eyes. I delivered another part. Lena's face went away for good. With the year, we laughed in a kitchen. In return, I gained amplitude. I saw the blade as a wind map and fencing blade. Rook slipped inside her and was unharmed. Miro, underground, hammered antennas with wrong pauses. Cell tapped the book on the railing 3 times, each of a size. The sieve came again. I lifted the blade on its side, let it drink the adjustment, and spit to the side of the water. The main prism finally showed a flaw, a dull edge and loss of brightness. Yara shouted a number. That was the point. Rook dove and spun backwards, and the whole arc descended like a harvest. No blood, no hatred, only work. The prism broke in 4. The pieces stayed in the air for a second, then turned to dust that the wind carried to the night side. The escorts dispersed. The militia ran without command. The city has returned weight to the knees. The blade stood aloft for 3 beats, breathed, and vanished as a thing that knows the time. I sat at the base of the 13. The world had new corners. Yara fell next to me, laughing and crying. Rook landed crookedly and kissed the ground. Miro appeared dirty, showing his grated hands as a trophy. Cell came down slowly, tired, his eyes shining. Eve stayed, Yara said. It was, I replied. Civilian radio exploded in voices. People are telling names, asking for water and offering blankets. Valas, captain of the guard, asked for silence, failed, and laughed. Heliarquia did not speak further. Perhaps they have understood that Serath does not repeat himself. I touched the engine housing. It was lukewarm, a live animal. I knew that a part of me was gone forever. Accepted. I wrote with a marker on my forearm, in large letters, for when memory fails again, do not repeat. Vespera stayed. The Twilight blade as well. Tomorrow we will have to defend again. The war does not end. Learn. And we now know how to teach. The city dawned without haste. Vantes did not vibrate. The ground accepted weight. The wind blew crooked as always, but without the glass tip in its throat. I sat on the step of catenary 13, hands dirty with grease, the penumbra engine sleeping low behind me. I remembered what I needed. Team names, antenna position, the synchronization node, and the price I paid. The rest I would look for later, with help. We are still here. Yara Knox arrived with coffee and a list. She always brings a list. Roofs to be patched, bridges to stabilize, alternating water lines without creating a routine. I asked for the pen and added 3 items: training irregular shifts in schools, dim kits by neighborhood, and recording each improvisation that worked. She read it and nodded. Then he looked at me carefully, as if measuring fever. How much have you forgotten? Enough to hurt. Enough for real. She didn't try to console. He pulled out a cloth and wiped the edge of the panel, as if wiping sweat from his forehead. Brother Cell showed up with children. He brought new dry pages with firm letters. He wrote a simple primer, non-repeated steps, safe pauses, and how to breathe out of time without panic. The children laughed at the drawings. They played the game of crooked traffic lights. They learned quickly. Rook stepped down from the hangar line and leaned his forehead against the tower. He is alive. It's the miracle I keep at night. He now trains pilots on the gradient, without vanity. It shows how to listen to the wind in the bones, and how to turn upside down at the right time. The city needs people who know how to fall without leaving. Miro became a good shadow in Subgloam. He painted new, non-patterned marks for escape routes. It brought together old gangs on work fronts. It took portable antennas to places where the map does not enter. At night, he climbs to the terrace and counts stars through the hole between clouds. Captain Valis, tired and less harsh, brought 2 platoons. They set up kitchens. They unclogged sewage, welded antenna brackets. No one asked for a vote, promise, or portrait. In Serath, those who help get a bed and bread. By mid-morning, the dealership board tried to resume the old tone. They wanted to open tariffs, sign permissions, and hang fines. They were greeted by silence and a short meeting. The city now answers to the Penumbra Command. It's a big name for a small task, to save the life that is left. Yara takes care of the technical core. Cell signs protocols. Rook and Ditches hold sky and ground. I sign when you have to take the blame. That's what subscriptions are for. We installed civilian radios in squares and markets. They don't play music, notices the teacher played. Today, red routes exchange with blue ones. Tomorrow, no one crosses the mill bridge twice in a row. On the rooftops, lamps flash simple figures. The city learned to speak in dim light. In the afternoon, we went to the smooth square. We planted low posts and drew the border with opaque paint, not to forget, to remember without stumbling. There used to be benches and a fountain. Now there is a space that tells the story of what should not come back. I ran my hand over the cold stone. I wanted to cry, and I didn't. Kept. I received visitors. People who lost people came to me. They did not apologize or shout. They just wanted to know if the blade would hold tomorrow. I said yes, and he told the truth. It will hurt again. It will cost. It will be worth it. They left heavier and firmer. It's the best I know how to give. At the end of the day, the external radio came. Kepler 7, Freixo do Norte, Bahia Velha. Cities in the Gloam Belt have asked for copies of our protocol. We send carefully. Don't copy everything. Adapt. Do not repeat it. If they do the same, the glass learns. I heard thanks with different accents. I felt that Serath entered the conversation of the world. At night we went up to 13 and looked at the sky. The prisms retreated, but they did not disappear. A faint streak crossed the east. Sel put his ear to the metal and closed his eyes. I asked without a voice. He replied, "They are moving. They look for another edge." I went to the panel. The engine took a deep breath. I passed the marker on my forearm. I reinforced the worn letters. Do not repeat. Yara touched my shoulder. Rook shook my hand. Miro gave me a tape full of knots, each one different. I clipped it to my wrist. The knot reminded me of Lena in a flash. The pain came and went. I was left with what I have. The city, the people, and the tower. Before midnight, the Spectre whistled low. A clean code. Sel translated half silently and half with her mouth. Glass architecture moving to Orla Noctis. Orla Noctis is far away, on the edge of the night side, where the dim light is knife and ice. There are no catenaries standing there. There are ruins and people scattered around. If the heliarchy sifts through there, the map changes. Yara opened up the old schemes. Rook prepared the wing for cold hull cracking. Valis asked for volunteers. Miro collected lamps and chalk. Sel kept the book in a cloth cover. I went down the stairs without a sound. I touched the base of the 13 and promised to come back. Vespera stayed. That's more than yesterday. Tomorrow we will take the blade into the night. There we will make mistakes on purpose again. We will pay the price again, and we will return with what fits in hand. That's what we do. Before going to sleep, I sat on the step of the tower and wrote in the notebook, "Penumbra is between, not middle. Glass learns. So do we." I closed the notebook. I lay on the cold floor. I slept like someone holding a rope in the dark. When I woke up, the sky was the same color as copper. The radio breathed. The city was standing. And the day, finally, seemed to want to stay.